Good evening, everyone. Today, I want to begin with a question. How many of you have ever said yes when your heart was screaming no? How many of you have smiled to keep the peace, apologized when it wasn't your fault, or tried to please everyone around you, only to feel invisible, drained, and unappreciated? If you're nodding your head, my friend, this one's for you. It's time to stop being the nice girl. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being kind, compassionate, and caring. Those are beautiful qualities. But when being nice comes at the cost of your peace, your boundaries, and your self-respect, that's not kindness anymore. That's self-betrayal. As Gaur Gopal beautifully says, you can't pour from an empty cup. You cannot keep giving love, time, and energy to everyone else while starving your own soul. Stop saying yes when you mean no. It sounds simple, but for many people, especially those raised to be polite, accommodating, and nice, it's one of the hardest habits to break. We live in a world where being agreeable is often mistaken for being good, and saying no is seen as rude or selfish. But the truth is, constantly saying yes when your heart, your energy, or your intuition says no is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself. Every unnecessary yes drains your energy, weakens your boundaries, and quietly tells the world that your needs don't matter. And over time, you begin to believe that lie yourself. When you always say yes to others, you're often saying no to yourself, no to your peace, no to your priorities, and no to your personal growth. You give your time to things that don't align with your values, your energy to people who take without giving, and your focus to distractions that keep you from becoming who you truly want to be. You might do it to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, or to protect your image as the dependable one. But in reality, this constant self-sacrifice isn't peacekeeping, it's self-abandonment. True peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict, it comes from honoring your truth. There's a profound strength in the word no. It's not a word of rejection. It's a word of protection. When you say no to something that doesn't serve your well-being, you're re-saying yes to your time, your purpose, and your emotional health. Yet many of us struggle with guilt when we try to set these boundaries. We worry about disappointing others, about being misunderstood, or about appearing unkind. But here's something worth remembering. You are not responsible for how others react to your boundaries. You're only responsible for setting them. People who truly care for you will respect your honesty, and those who don't were never invested in your well-being to begin with. Every time you agree to something that doesn't sit right with you, a small part of your authenticity fades away. It's not the big betrayals that exhaust us. It's the little compromises we make daily, the ones that chip away at our self-worth. Maybe you agree to extra work when you're already overwhelmed. Maybe you attend a social gathering when what you really need is rest. Or maybe you keep quiet when someone crosses a line because you don't want to make things awkward. These moments may seem small, but collectively, they shape the way you see yourself. You begin to associate kindness with compliance and love with sacrifice, until eventually you can no longer tell where your needs end and someone else's expectations begin. Learning to say no doesn't make you harsh, it makes you honest. It's an act of emotional maturity and self-awareness. It means you understand that your time and energy are valuable resources, not things to be spent recklessly. It means you've stopped measuring your worth by how useful or agreeable you are to others. A person who knows when to say no walks with quiet confidence. They don't need to explain or over-justify themselves. Their boundaries become their language of self-respect. In life, there will always be demands, requests, and pressures to do more, give more, and be more for everyone else. But you cannot serve the world from an empty cup. You cannot show up as your best self when you are constantly drained from pleasing others. The people who truly make an impact, who live fulfilled, purposeful lives, are not the ones who say yes to everything. They are the ones who say yes to the right things and no to the wrong ones. So the next time you feel the word yes rising in your throat, Pause and listen to your inner voice. Ask yourself, am I agreeing because I want to, or because I'm afraid not to? If the answer comes from fear, that's your cue to stop. Your no is not a wall. It's a gate that protects your peace. It's not an act of rebellion. It's an act of wisdom. The world doesn't need more nice people who exhaust themselves for approval. It needs more authentic, self-aware individuals who know their worth and live by it unapologetically. And that begins the moment you have the courage to say no. Kindness is one of the most beautiful qualities a person can possess. But when it comes at the cost of your self-respect, it stops being a virtue and becomes a weakness. Many people, especially those who pride themselves on being nice, confuse kindness with submission. They think being kind means tolerating disrespect, staying silent when mistreated, or giving endlessly even when they are emotionally or mentally depleted. But genuine kindness is not about allowing others to walk over you. It's about extending compassion while still protecting your own dignity. Self-respect and kindness are not opposites. They are partners. When balanced, they create a form of strength that is both graceful and unshakable. To be truly kind, you must first learn to be kind to yourself. That means recognizing your worth, honoring your boundaries, and refusing to let anyone take advantage of your generosity. Too often, people give from a place of fear of rejection, fear of being disliked, fear of seeming selfish. They bend over backward to be helpful, understanding, and accommodating, thinking that constant niceness will earn them love and approval. But in truth, love that must be bought through self-sacrifice is not love at all. It's dependency. Kindness without self-respect invites exploitation. When you consistently put others above yourself, you unconsciously teach them that your needs are secondary, and over time, they begin to treat you that way. Self-respect is the invisible line that separates genuine kindness from people-pleasing. It's what allows you to give with intention, not obligation. When you have self-respect, your kindness comes from strength, not from a need to be validated. You don't say yes because you're afraid of conflict. You say yes because you genuinely want to help. You don't stay silent to keep others comfortable. You speak with honesty and compassion, even when the truth is uncomfortable. People often think that kindness means being endlessly agreeable, but in reality, kindness rooted in self-respect sometimes means saying no. It means walking away from toxic relationships, refusing to tolerate disrespect, and holding people accountable, not out of anger, but out of love for yourself and for what's right. There's a quiet power in someone who can remain kind without losing their self-respect. Such a person doesn't seek validation from others because they already know their worth. They understand that they can be gentle without being weak and firm without being cruel. This kind of balance inspires trust and admiration. It shows others that kindness is not naivety, it's wisdom. It's knowing when to open your heart and when to protect it. It's realizing that compassion is not about saying yes to everything. It's about choosing where your yes truly matters. When kindness is unbalanced, it drains you. You begin to feel resentful, exhausted, and unseen. You might start asking yourself, why do I always end up giving more than I receive? The answer often lies in misplaced generosity, giving without limits, without boundaries, without self-awareness. True kindness doesn't ask you to empty yourself. It asks you to share from the fullness of who you are. And that fullness can only exist when you respect and nurture yourself first. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot spread light if your own flame is dying. Self-respect also means setting standards for how you expect to be treated. It's not arrogance to demand respect, it's self-awareness. When you respect yourself, you naturally command respect from others. People can sense when you have boundaries. They can feel the difference between someone who gives out of fear and someone who gives out of choice. The person who values themselves doesn't have to shout or prove their worth, they simply live it. Their kindness is not a currency, it's an expression of their inner peace. So, while kindness is indeed a virtue, it must never come at the cost of your self-worth. Being kind doesn't mean allowing others to misuse your patience or your empathy. It means treating people with love, understanding, and grace, while still expecting the same in return. The world needs your kindness, but it also needs your strength. The two together create balance, beauty, and authenticity. Kindness without self-respect is submission, but kindness with self-respect is power. The quiet, confident power of a person who knows their value and gives not to be seen, but because it's who they are. People respect boundaries, not blind agreement. It's a truth that many of us learn the hard way. We often believe that the more we agree with others, the more they will like us. That by being agreeable, we can avoid conflict and maintain harmony. But in reality, blind agreement doesn't earn respect. It breeds dependency and, at times, quiet disregard. The individuals who are most admired in life are not those who constantly nod along, but those who stand firm in their principles, even when it's uncomfortable. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate us. They are bridges that define how we connect with others, clearly, confidently, and respectfully. When you fail to set boundaries, you invite others to define your limits for you. You say yes to requests that drain your energy, agree with opinions you don't believe in, and tolerate behaviors that don't align with your values. At first, this may make things smoother. People might appreciate your compliance, your willingness to go along, but over time, that temporary approval turns into quiet disrespect. When others realize that you have no boundaries, they stop asking, they start expecting. What once seemed like kindness begins to feel like obligation. You become the person who always adjusts, always compromises, always says, it's fine, even when it isn't. Boundaries are essential because they teach others how to treat you. They signal self-awareness, strength, and emotional maturity. When you can say no without guilt and yes without fear, people begin to trust your words more deeply. They know that when you agree, it's genuine, not forced. Boundaries don't push people away. They create the conditions for healthy, respectful relationships. Without them, interactions become unbalanced, leaving one person feeling overextended and the other unaware of the harm being done. Respect cannot grow in such an environment. It flourishes only where mutual understanding and clear limits exist. Blind agreement, on the other hand, might feel peaceful in the short term, but it slowly erodes your confidence and authenticity. Each time you silence your thoughts to maintain someone else's comfort, you lose a bit of your own truth. You start living according to others' expectations instead of your own values. Eventually, you may look in the mirror and struggle to recognize the person staring back, a version of yourself shaped entirely by other people's preferences. Respect doesn't come from blending in, it comes from standing out with integrity. When you have the courage to say, I disagree, or this doesn't work for me, you show others that your voice carries weight. Setting boundaries is not about confrontation, it's about communication. It's about expressing what you need in a way that honors both yourself and others. People often fear that boundaries will make them seem cold or distant, but the opposite is true. Boundaries make relationships stronger because they replace resentment with clarity. When others know where you stand, they feel safer interacting with you. They trust your honesty. Even those who initially resist your limits will, over time, come to respect them because consistency earns credibility. Think of the people you admire, mentors, leaders, friends who inspire confidence. They're not the ones who agree with everyone. They're the ones who know who they are and aren't afraid to assert it. They don't need to argue or prove their point aggressively. Their calm confidence is enough. When they say yes, it's meaningful. When they say no, it's respected. That's the quiet power of someone who lives with boundaries. In both personal and professional life, boundaries are an act of self-respect that encourages mutual respect. When you enforce them, you teach people that you are not available for everything, that your time and energy have value. You also create space for deeper, more authentic connections. Relationships built not on compliance, but on genuine understanding. People may not always like your boundaries, but they will come to respect them. Blind agreement might earn temporary approval, but boundaries build long-term dignity. The world doesn't need more agreeable people. It needs more grounded individuals who can say, I respect you, but I also respect myself. That balance is where true respect lives. Don't confuse fear with compassion. This is one of the most overlooked truths when it comes to personal growth and emotional intelligence. Many people spend their lives mistaking their inability to say no for empathy, their hesitation to speak up for kindness, and their fear of confrontation for peacekeeping. But compassion that is born out of fear isn't genuine, it's compliance. Real compassion comes from strength, from a grounded sense of self that knows when to help and when to step back. Fear, on the other hand, makes us act out of insecurity, guilt, or a need for approval. The two may look similar on the surface, but the energy behind them is completely different. Fear-driven behavior often disguises itself as kindness. You agree to take on extra work because you don't want to upset your boss. You listen to a friend's endless complaints even when you're emotionally drained because you don't want to seem insensitive. You tolerate disrespect because you're afraid of losing someone's affection. These actions might appear selfless, but they actually stem from fear. Fear of rejection, judgment, or abandonment. The problem is that when fear dictates your actions, your compassion loses authenticity. You're not giving from the heart, you're giving from anxiety. You're trying to manage how others see you instead of staying true to yourself. Compassion that grows from inner strength feels completely different. It is calm, confident, and clear. It allows you to help others without losing yourself. It recognizes the difference between supporting someone and enabling them. True compassion knows when to extend a hand and when to step back and let others learn their own lessons. It's rooted in understanding, not obligation. When your actions come from strength instead of fear, you give without resentment and love without losing your boundaries. This kind of compassion is sustainable because it's not draining, it's empowering. Fear, however, is deceptive. It convinces you that saying no is cruel, that setting boundaries is unkind, and that speaking your truth will make people dislike you. It whispers that being too honest will push others away, so you stay quiet. You tell yourself you're keeping the peace, but in reality, you're creating internal chaos. You become frustrated, exhausted, and silently resentful. Over time, this drains your energy and erodes your confidence. Living out of fear doesn't protect relationships. It poisons them with dishonesty and suppressed emotion. People can sense when your kindness isn't real. It loses its sincerity. Compassion, on the other hand, invites respect. When you act from a place of clarity, others trust you more. They know that your yes means something because it's not forced. They know that your care is genuine because it's not rooted in fear. Real compassion isn't about trying to be liked. It's about doing what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Sometimes that means having difficult conversations, holding someone accountable, or refusing to participate in behavior that harms you or others. It means understanding that love and honesty can coexist. The moment you learn to separate fear from compassion, you step into your power. You stop being controlled by what others might think and start aligning your actions with your values. You begin to understand that being compassionate doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It means approaching conflict with wisdom and grace. You can disagree without hatred, walk away without bitterness, and say no without guilt. That's what emotional maturity looks like. The ability to choose integrity over comfort. There is a quiet freedom that comes with this awareness. When your kindness is rooted in confidence instead of fear, it no longer depletes you. You stop overextending yourself for validation and start giving from abundance. People are drawn to that kind of energy because it's real, balanced, and empowering. The world doesn't need more fearful kindness. It needs compassionate strength. The kind that listens without losing boundaries, that forgives without forgetting lessons, and that gives without erasing itself. Fearful kindness may win temporary approval, but strong compassion changes lives, starting with your own. Authenticity over approval is a principle that separates those who live freely from those who live trapped by expectations. Too often, people sacrifice their truth in exchange for acceptance. They hide their opinions, silence their emotions, and shape their personalities to fit into molds created by others. It may seem harmless at first, this constant desire to please, to blend in, to be liked. But over time, it becomes suffocating. Every act of self-denial chips away at your confidence, your individuality, and your joy. You begin to live not as yourself, but as a reflection of what others want you to be, and no matter how much approval you gain, it never feels like enough. Because deep down, you know it's not really you they approve of, it's the version you created to keep them comfortable. Living for approval is like running on a treadmill that never stops. You keep moving, striving, performing, but you never arrive anywhere fulfilling. The moment one person approves of you, another criticizes you. You change yourself again, adjusting your words, your behavior, even your dreams just to be accepted. But the truth is, approval from others is temporary, fragile, and conditional. It can vanish the moment you stop meeting someone's expectations. Authenticity, on the other hand, is lasting. When you live in alignment with who you truly are, you no longer need external validation to feel worthy. You stop chasing applause and start cultivating inner peace. Being authentic doesn't mean being rebellious or refusing to care about others' feelings. It means being honest, first with yourself and then with the world. It means speaking your truth with kindness, standing firm in your values, and expressing your thoughts even when they aren't popular. Authenticity is quiet confidence. It's knowing that not everyone will like you and being okay with that. In fact, when you stop seeking approval, you begin to attract people who resonate with your true self. The connections you form become deeper, more meaningful, and far more real because they are based on honesty rather than performance. Choosing authenticity can be uncomfortable at first. It requires courage to break free from patterns of people-pleasing and the fear of judgment. You may lose some people along the way, those who only valued your compliance, not your character. But in that loss, you find something far greater: self-respect. You begin to realize that your worth is not determined by how many people like you, but by how deeply you live in truth. You stop apologizing for being different, stop shrinking to fit in, and stop pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. Authenticity may cost you approval, but it rewards you with freedom. The world often rewards conformity. It teaches us from a young age to blend in, to play it safe, to avoid making others uncomfortable. But some of the most respected and impactful people in history are those who chose authenticity over approval. They dared to think differently, to challenge norms, to express ideas that others were too afraid to voice. They understood that pleasing everyone means standing for nothing. When you live authentically, you stop seeking the world's permission to be yourself. You give yourself that permission every single day. There is also an undeniable peace that comes with authenticity. You no longer have to perform, to wear masks, or to constantly edit yourself. You can simply be. Your words carry more power because they are real. Your actions carry more meaning because they come from conviction, not pressure. And the people who stay in your life under these conditions are the ones who truly belong there. Authenticity filters out the noise. It removes the superficial connections and leaves only what is genuine. The need for approval will always exist in some form. It's part of being human. But when it becomes the driving force behind your choices, it robs you of your individuality. Every time you betray your truth to please others, you send a silent message to yourself that your voice doesn't matter, but it does. It always has. The goal is not to be liked by everyone. It's to be respected by yourself. Approval fades, trends change, opinions shift, but authenticity endures. It's the foundation of true confidence and lasting fulfillment. When you choose authenticity over approval, you stop performing for the world and start living for yourself. And that's where real happiness begins. Be kind, but be powerful. These words carry a timeless wisdom, a reminder that kindness and strength are not opposites, they are allies. Too often, people confuse kindness with weakness. They assume that being gentle means being submissive, that showing compassion means surrendering your power. But the truth is, some of the strongest individuals you'll ever meet are those who choose to remain kind in a world that tests their patience daily. Kindness that stems from strength is intentional. It's measured, dignified, and unwavering. It does not seek validation or reward. It simply reflects inner peace and self-control. Being kind but powerful means mastering the balance between empathy and assertiveness. It means you can open your heart without letting others walk over you. You can forgive without forgetting your worth. You can listen with compassion without allowing yourself to be manipulated. This balance is rare, but it is essential for anyone who wishes to live authentically and confidently. Power without kindness becomes arrogance, and kindness without power becomes submission. But when the two coexist, they create a quiet confidence that inspires trust and commands respect. There's an art to being kind in a strong way. It's about speaking with calm authority rather than aggression. It's about saying no clearly, without guilt, and standing by that decision without needing to justify it endlessly. When you're truly powerful, you don't need to shout or dominate to be heard. Your presence and clarity do that for you. Kindness makes your power approachable, and power gives your kindness credibility. People trust those who are firm yet fair, compassionate yet consistent. They know where they stand with you because your actions are rooted in integrity, not in the desire to please. A truly powerful person understands that kindness does not mean tolerating disrespect. It does not mean staying silent when something is wrong or letting others take advantage of your goodwill. On the contrary, being kind often requires more strength than being harsh. It takes strength to stay calm when others are rude, to show patience when you're frustrated, and to choose understanding when anger would be easier. But that strength should never be mistaken for passivity. A powerful, kind person knows when to draw the line, when to walk away, and when to stand up, not just for themselves, but for what is right. When kindness is rooted in power, it elevates those around you. It allows you to lead with compassion, to influence without control, and to support others without losing yourself in the process. People are drawn to that balance because it feels safe and genuine. They can sense that your kindness isn't a mask, but a choice, a reflection of confidence, not insecurity. The most impactful leaders, teachers, and change makers embody this harmony. They don't use their power to intimidate, they use it to uplift. And that is what makes their presence unforgettable. Powerful kindness also transforms the way you view conflict. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond with clarity. Instead of proving your point, you seek understanding. You realize that power is not about domination. It's about control over yourself. And kindness is not about weakness. It's about wisdom. Together, they allow you to navigate life with grace. You become unshakable, not because life doesn't challenge you, but because you've learned that your worth is not defined by how others treat you. In a world where people often choose one over the other, kindness or strength, the real mastery lies in blending both. It's easy to be strong by being cold, and it's easy to be kind by being passive. But it takes emotional intelligence to be both. Warm yet firm, generous yet guarded, understanding yet unyielding. When you embody this balance, you inspire others to rise to the same standard. You show them that being kind doesn't mean being powerless, and that being powerful doesn't require cruelty. Ultimately, to be kind but powerful is to live from a place of balance and authenticity. It means knowing your worth so deeply that you no longer need to prove it. It means having the confidence to stand tall, even when your kindness is misunderstood, because you know your intentions are pure. And it means believing that your softness is not your weakness. It is your greatest strength. In a world that often tells you to harden yourself to survive, choosing to remain kind while standing in your power is one of the bravest things you can ever do. So today, I invite you to make a promise to yourself. Not to be rude, not to be arrogant, but to be real. To draw the line between being nice and being true. Because when you stop being the nice girl, you start being the powerful, authentic woman you were always meant to be. Thank you.